Hey, Math 3. So we're going to take a day and work on simplifying radical expressions. So when you get an answer that is the square root of some number and it's not a perfect square, how do you simplify that? So we're going to do several examples here. Now there are a lot of ways to do this, and some you might just be able to do in your head. But I'm going to show you the way that works for any of them that you do. And that's factoring. So essentially, I'm just going to start dividing. 125. Well, it ends in a 5, so I know I can divide it by 5. And 125 divided by 5 is 25. And 25 I can break down into 5 times 5. And there's just one n, so I can't do anything with it. Now, because this is a square root means 2. I'm looking for pairs. So I have a pair of 5s right here, which means I can take one 5 out of my radical. Then what's left behind? Well, I've got another 5 that wasn't part of my pair, and that n. Neither of those were able to come out. What this essentially is happening here, and this is the shortcut method, but what we're doing is the long method here would look like this. The square root of 125, well, that's 25 times 5n, right? Because 25 times 5 is 125, which then means the square root of 25, my properties say I can give them each their own square root. Well, and the square root of 25 is 5, so I've got 5 times the square root of 5n. So see how you end up with the same property? I'm just figuring out where that perfect square I can pull out of the problem is. Let me jump around and do a couple more. Let's try number 5. So number 5, 216, it's even, so I can take a 2 out of that. That's going to give me 108. I can take another 2 out of that because I'm still even. That's going to give me 54. Still even, so I'll take another 2 out. Gives me, if I take a 2 out, that comes out to 27. So, same thing, I'm looking for pairs. I've got a pair of 2s, so I can take a 2 out. Now let's look at the k's. Well, that k breaks down to 4 different k's. So I've got k, 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 and k. I'll be honest with you, I don't usually break it out like I do the numbers. I kind of look at it and say, all right, I've got 4 k's. How many sets of 2? When it's a square root, I'm always looking for sets of 2. How many sets of 2 can I take out of 4 k's? Well, I can make 2 sets of 2 out of 4 k's. So I can take k squared out. What's left behind? I've used up that pair of 2s. I've pulled all of my k's out. So I've got 2 and 27 left. And I multiply those together. 54 is what's left behind. Let's see if we can find a few others to work with. Let's take a look at number 12. So 64, you guys might know that one, but let's just use our method. I'm looking at 2, which means I can take out a 32, and then another 2, which gives me a 16, which gives me a 2, which gives me an 8, which gives me a 2, which gives me a 4, which gives me a 2, and a 2. Now, if you know that 64 is already, if you already know that one, absolutely do it. But if not, I'm going to show you this method. So again, I'm looking for pairs. I've got 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pairs of 2s. So I can take 3 sets of 2 out. M, if it's m to the third, I can take 1 set out. And there's 1 left behind, right? So I've got 1 pair of m's that's on the outside and an m on the inside, leftover m. N to the third, I can take 1 pair out, which leaves me with 1 n left, and I used up all my numbers, so there aren't any numbers left in my problem. So that's my final answer. You can put a little multiplication thing in there if you want. Let's try one more maybe. How about some of these that already have a number on the outside? What do they look like? Let's try number 20. So looking at number 20, 80. Now I've been breaking it down into just smallest numbers, but you don't have to. I could start here, 8 and 10, because that was obvious to me. So that's a 2 and a 4. That one would 10 would break down to a 2 and a 5. I can break that 4 down into 2 other 2s. So what do I have? I've got a 5. I've got 1 set of 2s and 2 sets of 2s. Now there are 2 ways I could write that. I could write that I took 1 set of 2s out and another set of 2s out. You could have also written 2 squared. It's really whatever makes more sense to you. And what's left behind? Just a 5. So for numbers, I'm just leaving a 5 behind. All right, taking care of all my numbers, look at the variables. A squared, I can take 1 set of a's out. There's no leftover a's. So this would be my answer with one exception. I am going to simplify this. So 5 times 2 is 10, times 2 is 20. So I have 20a times the square root of 5. And I think that covers all the different problems. So what I'd like you guys to do is you're going to do the odds on this worksheet. And you can write them on a separate piece of paper. You do not need to print this out. But yeah, so that's it for today. Have a good one.